think of. What is it like being a publicist for a WNBA team like the Connecticut Sun?
Not party glamorous. I'm sorry. It is. I mean, what you see in the movies is not exactly. I think it's interesting. So I was there for 13 years. Obviously started as a publicist. I did move up a couple times throughout my career. But it's a lot of the same kind of things that you see in the movies. It's a lot of relationship building between yourself and the players, between yourself and the coaches, the rest of the front office staff, and then the media. Obviously, like my whole job was to get us media coverage along with my manager. So working with our players to find out what their stories are. One of the great things about the WNBA is just the sheer amount of stories that the women have to tell. And the fact that they are moms, they are entrepreneurs, they're not just athletes. They are real human people who have incredible stories to tell that have come from such diverse backgrounds and have so many interests outside of basketball. And just to be able to tell those, that was the biggest part of my job, but also the most rewarding part of my job was to be able to get to know them as people instead of just athletes. And you see everyone's like, oh, well, this person is so famous. And yeah, you see the most famous people on TV, but they're real people, and they have families just like we do. They have history just like we do. They have interests just like we do. And to be able to tell that was really important. I met some incredible people during my time. Some of my favorite people in the world were athletes that I've worked with. Just to be able to tell their stories. There's still a lot of like minutia media relations stuff, like game notes, press releases, stats, all that stuff. But to be able to tell the stories of our athletes is the biggest thing that we do at the WNBA level and at the NLL level as well. And just to be able to tell those is the biggest thing. It's not there is some glamour involved occasionally. Get to meet some pretty famous people occasionally. When I was at Mohegan, we hosted 4 all-star games, so to be involved in those. Some of our players had charities that would have galas, things like that. But it's a lot of behind the scenes, time consuming work. But building the relationships with the media and building the relationships with the players is the biggest thing.
And it's not quite, obviously we know the movies, it's not quite what it's like in the movies, but again, I just think it's such a cool opportunity to, you got this opportunity and you ran with it. And again, you were there for 13 years. You didn't really know what you were getting into, and then you're there for 13 years. And I think it's so cool. And especially in a place like Connecticut, that's a very big basketball, state. There's the word I'm looking for. Obviously with UConn being there, and then what was it like specifically? And I know you really don't know too much else until the Black Wolves came in, the National Lacrosse League. What was it like over those 13 years? How much better did it get for the WNBA? How much more exposure was coming? How much more opportunities did these athletes have and the team have to really start telling that story? Because 13 years is a very long time. And the WNBA has come a very long way, especially very recently with their redo of their agreement with the league and everything, and how much the players are getting paid. So what were those 13 years like in terms of how much, I don't want to say easier did your job get, but how much more opportunities came along, especially towards the latter half?
We were incredibly, like you said, Connecticut's a basketball state. And so we were incredibly blessed that we had a core of media that cared about women's basketball. The team came in 2003, relocated from Orlando, and Mohegan Sun was actually the first independent owner of a WNBA team, which was cool. Incredible. But there was already built-in interest in women's professional sports, which I thought was phenomenal. So we were very blessed that our local media was able to cover. Now, granted, Connecticut's not huge, but there are major there's not just one newspaper in Connecticut. So we had beat writers from at least 5 newspapers at every single one of our games, at most of our practices. We were on local television, not every game, but a lot of games. The biggest change that I saw was nationally. And a lot of that didn't have just to do with women's sports. Honestly, that I think the biggest thing that helped, and there's always the detriment to it, was the evolution of social media and online publications, because there's more eyes on women's sports, which I cannot even tell you, having run a team Twitter account and have access to a Twitter account, the sheer amount of, get back in the kitchen, those kind of comments. But definitely like the evolution of in social media, but also like blogs and online publications that are exposing a sport like a league like the WNBA to even more people. There are some incredible bloggers out there who, if there weren't so many less actual like in-print publications going on right now, that would have jobs at those publications. So I think, those people that genuinely love the game and love women's basketball that are being able to elevate, that was the biggest change that I saw, was on the national level.